Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the summit this year in person. Today, we'll be talking about enabling remote work through virtual desktops. So we'll do a quick intro. My name is Tushar Banani. I am a specialist solutions architect for end-user computing services, and I have my colleague here, Spencer.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm a senior solutions architect on our state and local government team. I've been working with state and local government customers to deploy AppStream since 2017 and working.
Thanks, Spencer. So on the agenda today, we'll take a look at the two end-user computing services, so Amazon Workspaces and AppStream 2.0. We'll talk about some of the differences and the similarities between both the services. We'll be talking about 3 customer examples. So one specific example is for LA County that Spencer will be walking us through. We'll also be doing a short demo and we'll discuss next steps. So ever since the pandemic began about 18 months ago, we have seen customers move through 3 phases. So when the crisis first hit, customers wanted to react quickly and wanted to provide their end users with virtual desktops. As time has gone on, we have seen customers moving to some kind of a hybrid environment where they want to return to work or they're thinking to return to some kind of a new environment. And as we look towards the future, customers really want to reimagine what that's going to look like after the pandemic and how can the technology be more than just a backup. The biggest change is just to provide a more distributed and flexible workforce. So in my conversations with customers recently and when we discuss their long-term goals, they're mostly consistent with the survey results that we've seen with PwC. So we have seen executives, or 83% of the companies, wanting to move to some kind of a hybrid environment. In fact, 1 in 10 customers want to give up their office space entirely. And they are putting their money where their mouths are because about 70% or 72% of the companies are investing more in security, so securing virtual access and more tools for virtual collaboration. And that's what we will talk about here today for Amazon Workspaces and AppStream 2.0. The main mission with both of these, and in fact all of our AWS services, comes down to 4 core reasons. And these are the reasons why customers choose AWS to provide secure virtual access to their end users. So the first and foremost is security. We have increased security. And in fact, one of the critical features for both Workspaces and AppStream is just that there's no data ever stored on the local device. So this makes it even less likely for any data leaks. The second reason is agility. So in today's day and age, customers want to scale up very quickly and they want to scale back quickly as well. So with some of the tools that we provide, excuse me, it's very easy to scale up with the API calls or using the AWS console, and customers can scale up to thousands of instances within minutes and scale back down just as quickly. The third reason is reliability. So on-prem virtual desktop infrastructures are hard, and maintaining uptime SLA is even harder. Moving that to the cloud takes some of that burden off just because one of our biggest reliable features or nodes is just that we have 99.9% SLA for Amazon Workspaces and AppStream 2.0. And it's kind of hard to beat that with an on-prem VDI. And that's when customers realize the power of AWS Cloud. The fourth reason is cost savings. So we help optimize costs just because with Workspaces and AppStream, there is a pay-as-you-go model. There are no upfront commitments or no long-term commitments. Now, I'd like to take a look at what Workspaces and AppStream really is and some of the use cases where we have seen most of the customers use that. So Amazon Workspaces is a fully managed persistent desktop virtualization service. With Amazon Workspaces, you can provision Windows or Linux desktops and provide instant access to your users. They can access their virtual desktops from any device and practically from anywhere in the world. On the other hand, AppStream 2.0 is an application streaming delivery service. So administrators can deploy applications which end users can get instant access to, and they can even access desktops through AppStream. They will be non-persistent in nature, but we'll talk more about that later. Now, I also want to talk about some of the use cases. So the biggest one being remote workforce. We talked about how customers want a more flexible, more remote, and just more work from home options in general. So that's when they really turn to Amazon Workspaces, because whether the users are connecting from the office or from the home, it will be the same virtual desktop that they will be connecting to. The second is contingent workforce. So we have seen organizations moving to contingent workforce or contractors just to be more agile, save money, and capitalize on opportunities to grow. So instead of buying hardware or laptops and shipping it out to remote workers and then procuring them later on, it's really easy to just spin up an Amazon Workspace, provide an instant access that they can connect to within minutes. Now, we talk about contact center agents. So contact center agents are really the front line for customer experience, and organizations are having their contact center agents either work from home partially or fully as time goes on. So with Amazon Workspaces, contact center agents can use their personal device, connect to a workspace, and the IT administrators and the security folks can make sure that there's no corporate data ever on the local device. Some of the other use cases on the AppStream side of things is more towards graphics-heavy applications. So users a lot of times need access to applications to get their job done. These applications can be hard to manage, they can be hard to image, and they might sometimes even require expensive hardware. So with AppStream 2.0, you don't need to buy hardware or you don't need to invest heavily just to provide your users access to intensive graphics applications. You can quickly image them, deploy them, and you will be charged by the hour. And of course, the last is remote students and labs. So this use case is different in different organizations. So for students, they can have access to labs or courses online. They don't really need a persistent desktop each and every time. They just need access to their courses. On the other side of things, there's labs, university labs, or faculty that may need to proctor exams or may need to just access desktops which are persistent, so they might use workspaces. So with universities, we mostly see a hybrid setup where some of them are using workspaces and the others are using AppStream. Now, when I was defining workspaces and AppStream, I used the terms fully managed. I really wanted to take a minute to talk about what fully managed means, what falls under AWS responsibility, and what falls under customer responsibility. So everything that we see in the orange is typically when AWS or Amazon Workspaces or AppStream is compared to on-prem VDI or cloud VDI providers. Everything that we see in orange is customer responsibility. So if it's on-prem VDI, then almost everything is customer responsibility. If it's cloud VDI, then I guess half of the infrastructure and the admin overhead is cloud responsibility by third-party cloud providers, and half of it is customer responsibility. But with Workspaces and AppStream 2.0, almost everything from the rack and stack to the VDI control plane, everything falls under AWS responsibility. And even the things that do fall under customer responsibility, we provide features where you can automate those things, such as image management or directory service deployment. Now let's talk about Amazon Workspaces for a second. I mentioned fully managed persistent desktop virtualization service. I just want to mention or dive a little bit deeper into what that means. So when we talk about persistence, it's more along the lines of if I log into my desktop and if I want my browser to save all my favorites, and if I type in A, I expect my browser to autofill and take me to Amazon.com quickly. That's the kind of persistence that I'm talking about. Or it can even be about like a family background. So if those settings are allowed, and if I log on to my virtual desktops, if I want to see the same family background day in and day out, then that kind of persistence is what Amazon Workspaces offers. Amazon Workspaces can be accessed from practically any device. So on the operating system side, it could be Windows, Mac, or Linux. You can even connect to it using tablets, so iPad, Android, and there's also browser support enabled, so you can use Chrome or Firefox to connect to Workspaces. Now, we mentioned fully managed, reliability, agility. We'll take a closer look at what each of these things mean. So we discussed the use cases and how remote workers or contact center agents, how they're utilizing Amazon Workspaces. But let's just take a closer look and talk about how agency access or education access, how they're leveraging Amazon Workspaces. So when we talk about agencies or when we talk about state or local governments, they can be using it or they are already using it for different things. So whether it's contingent workforce or emergency workers, they're providing access to their end users to Amazon Workspaces, and they're quickly revoking access as soon as those contingent contracts are over. On the education side of things, I've worked with customers in the education industry where a lot of proctors are using Amazon Workspaces to log on, carry out their day-to-day responsibilities, and log off without having to use their own device, just for additional security. And then when we talk about ease of access, it's more so about bringing your own device, or it's about bringing your own license. So there's some added cost benefits and some added feature benefits over there as well. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit. We mentioned increased reliability, and I already talked about the 99.9% uptime SLA. By design, Workspaces is deployed in two different availability zones. You can even deploy Workspaces to be fault tolerant. So let's say if there's an outage in one region, you can have Workspaces be automatically spun up in a different region without your users even realizing it. On the other side, when we discuss scaling or automated scaling to be more precise, you can leverage several API calls to spin up thousands or hundreds of workspaces within a matter of minutes, scale them back down, and even be able to manage them to a large extent just using the API calls. Now, when we talk about global footprint or disaster recovery, Amazon Workspaces do not all have to be deployed in a single region. You can have a global deployment, so you can distribute your workspaces and have them as close as possible to your end user's physical location. So there's a lot of flexibility, and you can also still apply the same management policies regardless of where the workspace is physically located. Now, we have thousands of customers using Amazon Workspaces and AppStream 2.0, and hundreds of thousands of end users accessing their virtual desktops day in and day out. So we have some of the customer examples here. So Amazon, of course, is the biggest one. We have Johnson & Johnson, and a lot of state and local governments, federal agencies are all using Workspaces and AppStream 2.0. So we'll be taking a closer look at some of the examples from the education side. So talking about Arizona State University here, So Arizona State University wanted to provide access to their end users to Amazon Workspaces, and they had roughly about 120,000 users. So they found Workspaces to be a very secure solution, and they used Workspaces to provide access to their data lake environment, and they were using it as a jump box, as a full-fledged desktop. There were different use cases, but all in all, they thought that Workspaces was a great fit for them. Now, let's talk about AppStream 2.0, what some of the similarities are and differences are when it comes to AppStream versus Workspaces. So, with AppStream 2.0 being more focused on application delivery, users, or rather administrators, can deploy applications within a golden image that users can get instant access to. And these can be Windows applications, or they can be open source applications. We've seen customers be very creative with how they're deploying their applications. But to summarize, it can be used to deploy various different types of applications within the same golden image. And within the same instance, users can have access to different types of applications. Now, when we talk about end user experience and how they will be accessing it, similar to Workspaces, there is a Windows client for AppStream 2.0, but usually I've seen a lot of customers using the browser. So think of Chrome, Firefox, or Safari, basically any browser that supports HTML5. Talking about the similarities, it is also fully managed, pay-as-you-go, easy to scale. So those things are the same benefits you'll get with Workspaces as well as AppStream. It's really about the persistence, and it's really about making a choice whether end users need persistent desktops or do they just need some applications. And talking about the use cases, so similar to Workspaces, a lot of state, local governments, and federal agencies are also using AppStream for contingent workers. It really comes down to the type of data and applications and resources that those workers need access to. So when using AppStream, you can really cut down on the amount of data or the amount of applications that you're providing access to, and that's what we've seen customers do on the state or local government or the federal agency side, where they're only just giving access to the required amount of apps that the contractors need access to do their jobs. On the education side, like I was mentioning earlier, the persistence is not required. So we've seen, and we'll take a look at a customer example here in a minute, but we've seen education or educational organizations use AppStream to provide access to courses or online labs, which don't have to be persistent. And along those lines, we've seen a lot of different organizations use AppStream just to provide like online trials or demos to their products, just so that their customers can get a feel of what the product is before buying into it. So talking about another educational organization, so East Tennessee State University, they use AppStream to deliver various different types of courses to their students, and it was about 1,300 students that got access to different types of courses. So think of media, digital science, or basically they had a lot of different type of courses that the students wanted to take, and they were able to use AppStream for all of them. Now, one thing that's really consistent between Workspaces and AppStream is just the amount of features that they provide and how it really mimics the traditional desktop. So when we talk about traditional desktop experience, we usually think about 4 monitors or up to 4K resolution. AppStream does provide that. We talk about peripheral devices, so if end users need webcams or microphones or certain types of other devices, those can be redirected to both their virtual desktops for Workspaces and AppStream. We recently also released support for smart cards, which is supported by Workspaces and AppStream, and it is being widely used by a lot of our federal customers. So CAT and bill smart cards. And Workspaces and AppStream are both constantly being optimized for real-time video and audio. So we're constantly working with third-party vendors that provide collaboration tools, and we're trying to optimize the end-user experience for meetings, so they can attend meetings from within the virtual desktops. And last but not the least, flexible printing. Of course, printing sounds a little bit 2015, but Workspaces and AppStream, both of them do provide flexible printing, so local printers, network printers, or any other kind of printers that the end users want to bring. And now I'd like to hand it off to my colleague Spencer.
Thank you. So I'm going to talk about a customer that I've been working with for the last 18 months. And this customer used AppStream 2.0 to enable remote work for their employees during the COVID-19 pandemic. So this customer is Los Angeles County. What I want to do is start by taking you back to March 2020, 18 months ago, to give you a little bit of context for this project. So back in March 2020, the LA County Board of Supervisors issued a safer at home order. And if you don't know, Los Angeles County is the largest county in the United States, has over 10 million residents. Basically that safer at home order applied to all of the employees at LA County, but it also affected those constituents who relied on those employees to provide really critical services. So the county was basically facing a lot of uncertainty at that time because, as I mentioned, they had 112,000 employees, and the question was, how many of these individuals are critical and need to work remotely, right? It was an open question because we had never been in this scenario before. So in considering a solution to enable remote work, the county had some constraints that they had to think about. One big one was that a lot of county employees, in fact, most county employees, worked at a physical location with an assigned desktop computer. They didn't have a laptop that they can simply take home and do their work from. If employees did have devices at home that they could use, of course, it's inconsistent, right? Some people might have a Windows PC, some people might have a MacBook, and then, of course, inconsistent internet connectivity is a challenge. The county did have an existing VDI solution they had been using for several years, but it was already close to capacity, and it certainly could not take the extra 112,000 employees that suddenly needed to work from home in just about a week. And then finally, because of that uncertainty, they needed a flexible solution that very quickly, because many departments are providing critical services that could not be interrupted for any reason. So they needed something that could be flexible and deployed very, very rapidly. So the solution the county came to was basically a three-pronged approach for enabling those employees to work from home. And the first was client VPN for certain users who already had county-issued devices. One caveat there is that would only provide access to web applications, right? If you had some business application that needed to be installed on your physical desktop, client VPN is not going to help you there. The existing VDI solution was sufficient for employees who are already using the VDI solution before the safer at home order. And then AppStream 2.0 with desktop view, which provides non-persistent desktops, was the solution for everyone else. And what we eventually came to was around 22,000 users. So those were all the users that used AppStream 2.0. I'd like to take you through the solution that I actually worked with the county to set up to enable those 22,000 users to get online. And this took place over approximately a week. So the solution started by creating a VPC in AWS. If you're not familiar, VPC is a virtual private cloud. It's a private network. So we had to create quite a large one, a /19, to handle all the IP addresses that we would need. We needed to domain join those AppStream instances so that we could use group policy. So the county had an Active Directory domain on premises. And to create connectivity between on-premises and AWS, we actually leveraged Direct Connect. Once that link was in place, we were able to create a new Active Directory site in AWS for the cloud. The next step was essentially just creating our AppStream images. So we worked with VDI administrators at the county to create an AppStream image specific to every department that needed to be online. It ended up being around 25 departments. There's, I think, 35 total in LA County. So we had to work with business owners, line of business at each department, understand what their employees actually needed access to, and install those applications on the image. And then we created a fleet using that image for each department. So around 25 fleets total. Even though AppStream is non-persistent, you do have the ability to save some customizations from one session to the next. There's a feature called native application settings persistence. So that leverages Amazon S3. So we use that to store out user settings across sessions. And then the best part is that for users to actually authenticate into this environment, we simply use the county's existing identity provider. And that meant that employees could log into their existing identity provider, which they already use for all sorts of use cases, in any web browser and get into their desktop with the applications that they needed to do business. So it was incredibly easy to onboard employees. So that's the solution at a high level. I want to focus on one department in particular that had a lot of success with AppStream, one of those 25, and that's the Department of Public Social Services, or DPSS. So the DPSS is the third largest department in LA County. They have over 14,000 employees. And this department provides services for 3.5 million residents. Those services include things like Medi-Cal health insurance, CalFresh, food assistance, CalWorks, and then assistance for constituents experiencing homelessness, domestic violence, and substance use disorders. So in particular, this county really could not afford to have their business interrupted even for a day. Christina Nguyen, the Chief Technology Officer at DPSS, said that AppStream was very quick to deploy, and it really helped the department to quickly and securely enable a remote workforce and maintain operations effectively service their customers. So I think it's worth talking about what properties of AppStream 2.0 allowed us to set this project up so quickly and why it was so successful in this case. And I think the first thing I would point to is something that's inherent in a lot of cloud services, and that is elasticity. The ability to get capacity on demand is critical. I mentioned we didn't know what percentage of those 112,000 employees needed to be online. So it's not like you can just buy hardware and quickly set it up in a week when you don't even know the number of users you're going to need, right? AppStream allowed us to scale up and scale down on demand without having to purchase hardware or licenses. And that allowed us to provide services for 22,000 unique users in a week. Integration with the county's existing identity provider and their existing authentication process meant that there was essentially nothing to learn, right? Users at home on their home computer went to their identity provider, they saw the AppStream application that had been assigned to them, they clicked on it, and it took them into a desktop with their applications. This works on essentially any device, right? As long as it is a supported browser, which we listed earlier, it's going to work, right? And I think the last thing worth mentioning is that with AppStream in particular, that ability to create those images, I mentioned with the line of business staff in each department, and then just roll it out to thousands of users in a fleet, was critical to get this set up quickly. So going past March 2020, which was 18 months ago, in April 2020, we had those 22,000 unique and 8,000 daily concurrent users. They were on this every single day. In June and July 2020 last year, we actually then started focusing on cost optimization, and we were able to reduce the overall monthly spend of the county in AppStream by 40%. So I'll talk about some strategies we use there and what I actually mean by cost optimization. And then just a couple months ago, July 2021, many departments, including DPSS, are still using AppStream every single day. Many employees at those departments are still using it every single day. So this has permanently transformed the way the county has approached remote work. So it's worth talking about cost optimization for a minute, because I mentioned we reduced the county's AppStream cost by 40%. If you're not familiar, in AppStream, we basically create a pool of streaming instances which are called fleets. So that's a cluster of servers. And what you can do is you can auto-scale that fleet up or down based on your needs at a given time. And that's good for cost optimization because that can reduce your cost, right? In the middle of the night when you have very few users, you want to shrink your fleet so that you're paying less, if that makes sense. So on the top there, you can actually see that we have some steps that are performed in the morning. And this is auto-scaling, increasing the amount of instances that are needed in the morning until we reach a peak around 10 or 11 a.m. And then in the afternoon, we start reducing the size of the fleet as our users sign off. So this is using time-based scaling, but you can also scale up based on the number of users that are active as well. On the bottom here, this is the exact same fleet, but this is the number of users that are actually signed in. So you can see that as the users increased, we actually allocated more fleet capacity. So this is the auto-scaling, and this is the actual utilization of the fleet. The point is we're matching need to actual resource provisioning. Another really important price optimization tool at our disposal is always-on fleets versus on-demand fleets. So in AppStream, always-on fleets allow an instantaneous connection, and on-demand is potentially a cost-saving option. The way it works is users connect to the on-demand fleet, and they do have to wait 1 to 2 minutes to connect to that instance. And that's because idle instances are basically hibernated in an on-demand fleet. The benefit, however, of an on-demand fleet is you pay significantly less for those on-demand idle instances that are not being used until the user connects to them. Okay, so now that we've talked through the Los Angeles County use case, I do want to do a demo for you of what the onboarding process looks like for both a Workspaces user and an AppStream user, just so you can see what a first experience might look like. So let's go ahead and take a look at Workspaces first. So you can see that I've received an email in Outlook here. Let's say I'm a remote worker. And in this email from my administrators, I have a link to the clients that I can download for my device. And I also have something called a registration code. And that registration code is going to be needed to actually sign into my Workspace in just a minute. So I'm going to copy it, just for safekeeping here. And then what I'm going to do is look at the clients that are available to me. So these are clients that you can download. We have clients for Workspaces for Windows, tablets, like Android, iPad, Mac OS, Fire Tablet, Linux, and even a web browser. So really, any sort of device is going to be able to connect to a Workspace. In this particular demo, I actually have a Mac OS client, so I'm going to go ahead and launch that client. And I'm going to put in my registration code that was in my email. Once I put in that registration code, it's going to take me to a page where I can enter my Active Directory credentials. So these are credentials that your users are using every single day to log in, right? Your username, your Active Directory password. So the user should be familiar with those. We can optionally also enable an MFA factor to log in. We support lots of different providers for MFA. In this particular example, I'm using an MFA provider called Duo. And the way it works is you can actually type in the factor that you want. So you can type in, for example, the word push, P-U-S-H, and that's telling Duo that I want to receive a push notification in order to complete multi-factor authentication. So I type in push. When I sign in here, you're going to see that I actually receive a push notification on my registered device from Duo. I go ahead and just complete that push notification and click approve. Once I've completed that, assuming my password and username are correct, it's going to sign me into my Workspace. Okay, so that's my Workspace. So nothing too exotic or unusual, right? Anybody who's ever used Windows is going to be familiar with this. This is a desktop with shortcuts. I've got my start bar on the bottom there. And there are a few things that administrators can optionally enable for the Workspaces client that I'm going to point out. So if you scroll to the top of the Workspaces client, you'll actually see some options available here. And again, these are optional. You can disable these as an administrator. So I can increase disk size, I can increase compute type. That's the number of CPU and memory available to my workspace. And for example, a user might scale up the workspace for a particular project where they need a really CPU-intensive app, and then scale it back down to reduce costs at a certain point. So you have that flexibility. So another thing that we're going to look at here is I actually can change what's called the running mode in my workspace. So you can see switch running mode right there. Okay, switch running mode. So in Workspaces, there's always on. That's really when you're using your workspace as a full laptop or desktop replacement. And basically, we're going to charge a monthly rate for that. Like, for example, $27 a month. Auto stop is where you pay hourly for the usage that the user is on, but they will have to wait just a couple of minutes when they connect because the workspace will be like in hibernating mode. And then finally, I can go into a full screen mode, and I can, if I have multiple monitors available to me, including 4K monitors, I can take advantage of those with my workspace. So it can basically look like your native local desktop if you have multiple monitors available to you. Okay, so that's Workspaces from the end user perspective, from a remote worker perspective. Let's take a look now at AppStream 2.0. So AppStream 2.0, it's a little bit different. I don't receive an email, and I don't have to download a client. What I see here is my identity provider. In this example, I'm using Azure Active Directory, but it could also be Okta, it could be AWS SSO, or it could be Ping, OneLogin. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is actually just click on the desktop view there. And when I do that, it's going to perform SAML federation from my identity provider into the AppStream environment. And it's actually just going to take me directly into a desktop. So go ahead and click on that. And by the way, these are assigned in by security groups in Active Directory. Okay, so now we're performing the SAML federation into the AppStream environment. And this is going to take me directly into my AppStream desktop. There you go. So you can see that I actually have some customizations here. I mentioned that it's possible to persist some custom user profile settings from one session to the next. That's why I have a folder there that says Spencer's favorite websites, and then a wallpaper that's customized. And again, this is just a Windows desktop, right? You'll notice that I'm actually accessing this through a web browser as well. Okay, so there's a couple options I want to point out here as well. If we go to the top there, I can enable microphone and webcam input. Maybe my applications need those. I can actually change the screen resolution. By default, it matches the local display. And I can also go into full screen mode and take advantage of multiple monitors, including 4K resolution. I can enable copy and paste in and out of the session if I want. I can also allow users to upload and download files from the remote session. And by the way, those are fully configurable by administrators. You can disable those if you don't want users to copy and paste or download files or upload files. So by the way, this is called desktop view. We're going to end the session, and because it's non-persistent, that'll terminate that AppStream instance. I want to show you application view, which is a different way of using AppStream. That's where we get just applications in a browser. So this is a demo that you can actually go check out. If you type in AppStream sample apps, I'm going to go ahead and log into this. With application view, you can see that I get a catalog of applications that my administrators choose to make available to users. These can be all sorts of applications, including graphics-intensive applications like Blender. I have Eclipse there. I even have some productivity software like a word processor. So we're going to click on Blender, and it's going to load Blender in my browser. And the experience is going to be just like if you were using it on a local desktop. So there's Blender. And what's really cool about this is 3D modeling software if you're not familiar with it. I can manipulate 3D objects in my browser. So here you can see that I'm actually manipulating this cube in 3D space. This is backed by a GPU instance, so that's how we're able to do this. I can also access the Windows file system to save this file or open a file. We can connect to a network file share in your network. So that's one way that AppStream customers persist data. So, another thing is if I want to switch to other applications, I can go to those 4 squares up there, and I can switch to other apps, and I can switch between them, just like if I were on a local desktop. So I'm actually going to go ahead and go to my word processor here. So this is what we were talking about, where lots of education customers use this to provide specific software that you need for a lab, a computer lab, to all students. But it's also very popular with enterprise customers that want to provide a business application that maybe it's only, it's a thick client that can only run an old version of Windows. You can actually put it in AppStream and stream it through a browser to your users, to your employees. Okay, so that's the demo of AppStream, both desktop view and application view. So a very common question we get here is, I see Workspaces, I'm getting a desktop. I see AppStream, I'm getting a desktop. When should I pick what for my remote workers? It's not clear. And so it really comes down to the kind of experience that you want for your end users. Like we mentioned, AppStream is a non-persistent desktop. Workspaces is persistent. It comes down to if you want your users to be able to install their own applications, and things of that nature. That would be more of a Workspaces use case. And we see, because of this difference, we see different sorts of use cases for both. So it's very popular for customers to use Workspaces as a full laptop alternative. For example, we see customers providing a Workspace to contractors as an alternative to shipping them a physical laptop, because it's just an easier onboarding process. AppStream 2.0 is going to be popular for use cases where you want a consistent set of applications every time your users log in. And so that's why it's so popular for computer labs in the school, because obviously you want every student to have the same exact set of apps every single time they log in, right? And then of course, if you just want to stream an application and you don't want the desktop, that's an AppStream use case. That's pretty clear, right? But we have lots of customers that are doing very creative things. So, we have customers that, one department is using Workspaces, one department is using AppStream, just depending on their requirements. And then customers getting really creative where they use Workspaces as the full-time desktop, but then for a specific application that requires a GPU, you can put the AppStream client on the Workspace desktop and actually access AppStream via Workspaces. That way you don't need a GPU workspace. Right? Maybe your user only needs a GPU 10% of the time. So just use AppStream for that one specific use case. So I do want to briefly mention something that you should check out after our presentation is this Workspaces flexible workforce offer. Now, this is going through October 31st, and essentially for new Workspaces customers, we're going to allow them to have 50 Windows standard bundle workspaces through October 31st for no charge. So definitely check this out if you're just wanting to see how Workspaces works. And if you have any questions about this, or Workspaces or AppStream in general, you can actually contact AWS at this link here, sales support. Another blog I would highly recommend that just came out earlier this year is from Munir Mirza, who's our general manager of end user experiences at AWS. And it talks about some of our advancements in the end user computing services and some just new things to look out for. Thank you everyone for coming in person today. I really appreciate it. We have our contact information up here. If you would like to reach out to us for any reason, questions about what we presented or advice, we'd love to hear from you. And one last thing we want to mention is if you could please complete the survey for us, give us feedback, we really appreciate it. We do take a look at that. So thank you very much.